All right, let's go. All right, let's go. Hey, listen, that was a great show last week with Brian Kilray.
Yeah, it was. And you know, it's funny though. You listen to those stories, Cindy, and those days are gone forever. I don't know if for good or for better or for worse, but
I don't know. Well, with Eddie Shore, they're gone. Thank God. Yeah.
So if you didn't listen to it, listen to last week's thing. If you want to hear stories about Eddie Shore and what you two guys had to go through.
Oh, that he just told one or two. He could have told about 20 on.
You know what used to be fun, Dad, is when you and him used to do the prospect game, right? And you used to sit in the little room beside the dressing room, and you two would start telling your stories, and people would be rotating in, coming in and out of that room. And to hear you guys tell your stories, people were just mesmerized.
Well, the one night it was a prospect game in Halifax.
Yeah.
And the night before it was the night. Wasn't the night before the game? It was the day before the game. And you and Brian were there, and you guys got into the beer, and Doug Wilson was there.
Oh yeah, Doug Wilson
was there, and Bert and you and I and the guys were going in. I left at like 4 a.m. And Brian keeps going. One more. We only got
one more. He'd hold it. He hold the can up. One more. No, there's only 2 left.
There's only 2 left. We can't let them go to waste. Yeah. Those 2 never ended.
And they were heavy duties too.
And then I remember Dougie Wilson goes, "Oh my God!" He goes, "I can't do this."
I couldn't keep up with him either, but I did. I couldn't show weakness. I had to. Holy.
And then both of you have a contest of nobody goes. The first person to go to go to the bathroom loses.
Yeah, that's always a test.
Was that? We had that?
Oh yeah, I know. It was like it was like that's what Doug Wilson said. He goes, "You guys had about 9 beers. You haven't gone to the bathroom yet." He goes, "I've gone about 4 times." He goes, "Holy smokes!"
Anyhow, how about the game last night with Vancouver?
Wow,
up 3-0 again, 3-0, and losing the game, and the guy loses the puck at the end.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah, who was that, Cindy? You were going to say?
That's one of my anti-favorite guys. He had a lot to say, that guy, when you with the Hockey Night in Canada when you left.
Oh, did I?
Yeah. So couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Oh, okay.
But here's the thing, Dad, about Vancouver, and we're not knocking Boost Boo Joke. He's a friend of ours, but Damko's not playing well at all.
He didn't.
And Spencer Martin. He's had 3 starts. He has got 2 wins. They've got 3 total, so he's got 2 of the 3 wins.
3 wins actually.
And then I think he lost in overtime. So the question is, even though he doesn't have great numbers, he's got more wins. Like what? Like why isn't Boudreau saying, "Well, I'm going to go with him until I can't go with him anymore"?
Well, the only thing I can think of is the other guy has signed a 5-year contract or 3-year contract.
No, 5-year.
5 years at $5 million, and the other guy is making and Martin is making $750. So if you're a guy and you say, well, a reporter. How about a reporter? He goes to one of the owners and says, "You're paying this guy $5 million a year for 5 years." And he's not playing, and the other guy, Martin, is making $750 a year. He's playing. So, well, if you were an owner, what would you do?
Well, you'd be mad, but at some point you got to say, how long am I going to go with this guy?
I'm just telling you. You're asking me what I would do, and I would play Martin, and I don't know what else to say.
You were never worried about management thinking about.
No, I should have been worried about.
Well, no, like you got to admit, Harry Sinden was just win.
I remember we had a meeting, and he says, "If you don't win, I'm gone too, because I'm the guy that hired you." And I said, "You want me to be like I was in Rochester?" He said, "I want you to be the same guy you were in Rochester." I said, okay.
Uh-oh. That was interesting. We were talking about how, you were a lot different than a lot of the coaches when you took on that persona, right? About practices and stuff like that. And
I coached like I wanted to be treated like a man. I wanted, if I wasn't in shape, I couldn't play for Joe Crozier. Joe Crozier, by the way, passed away last week. I think it was the week before. And he
Well,
was.
next week we'll do some stories on Joe.
But anyhow, I coached the way I wanted to be treated, and the players seemed to respond because we were in the finals 2 out of 5 years, and we won. We were first place most of the time.
Well, you just kept running into Montreal.
Yeah. Only problem is the 1976 team. Montreal Canadiens, was picked the greatest team ever. I happened to be in the middle of the Boston Bruins right at that time at 76.
Well, that's interesting that you said you treated them like men. Like, the interesting thing is with you coaching, you never fined them, you never suspended them, you never weighed them, right?
No.
You never gave them a curfew.
Just got rid of them.
You just got rid of them.
No,
You just made their life miserable.
There was no kind of middle ground.
Yeah.
It was like you never fined them, you never suspended them, you just got rid of them.
Just got
That's
rid
right.
of them.
Or you made their life a living hell,
I
and one of
remember
them quit in the middle of the season. Remember that one?
What was that?
Or you made their life a living
Oh, yeah.
hell if you couldn't get rid of them, and one of them quit in the middle of the season.
With 20 games left.
Yes, so
And I
wouldn't mess with you.
remember Harry coming out of his office way up on top, and I knew, I heard that he had gone in to see him, and I remember
talking about Dallas Smith.
yeah, come all the way down, come all the way down, and I went to the far end. I made him go to the far end, and he was coming right over the glass. How come a guy with 20 games to go in the season says he doesn't want to play for you anymore? I said, I don't know.
You were mean to him. You never yelled at him.
I never yelled at him. All I did was joke with him all the time.
Dad was what we call that passive aggressiveness.
Yes.
That microaggression.
And
nowadays.
you have it down
What's
to
it
a
called?
science.
Today would either what you did with Dallas was either microaggressive, that's what they call it, microaggression, or passive aggressive.
Yeah.
Oh.
Passive aggressive is like when you'd go to, what would you say to Dallas about his stick?
Oh, yeah, I said to Dallas, gee, he's a farmer now. And the players loved him. The players absolutely loved him. He was like John Wayne, like John Wayne getting old. And they loved Dallas Smith. I said, Dallas, what do you got that stick for? You don't score.
This is a big, heavy stick, eh?
Oh.
It was like a piece
It was like a
tubo.
big log. I said, what's that for? For cross-checking? No, you don't cross-check. You don't hit guys. What do you have that big, heavy stick for?
Oh, that must be irritating.
Oh, and the rest of the guys knew what I was
Snickering.
doing. Well.
But that's what they
and
call
what do you call that?
Passive aggressiveness.
Oh, okay.
Or
What's the other-
microaggression now, I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah,
Toxic
but
work
you were
environment.
way ahead of your time, Dad.
Yeah, I guess I was.
Okay, Dad, so let's talk a little bit about the Toronto Maple Leafs. They were having a tough time, and then they lost to some pretty bad teams, you hate to say.
Yeah, but they were on the road.
They're on the road. They started off, but then they beat. They played well against Boston last night, won 2-1. So my question is, are the Leafs one of those teams that don't play well against the worst teams, and then when Boston comes in or Vegas comes in, they're going to rise to the occasion?
It seems that way, doesn't it? They're just in a fog right now, and they're pretty good at home. And you get a penalty against them, boy. They put on 5 guys. They're pretty good. So I don't think so. I think they're just in a fog right now. They'll pull out of it. And once they get smoking, they'll be all right.
So I got to ask you though about Matthews playing Philly.
Oh yeah,
And
I like
he
Matthews.
slashed Konechny slashed him back. They started pushing, and then everybody jumped in, and
And
he was
then-
kind of laughing. And then while everybody was fighting, he was just kind of standing back.
Well, I like Matthews. He's a good goal scorer and everything. You just can't do that when you're a goal scorer. You have to take it, like Lafleur. The only time Fleur ever got mad was when him and Mike Milbury used to go
Yeah,
at it.
they always had a thing going. Is it true he shot a puck at Milbury's head?
He did. I remember the play. He had it in his own end. He cut across his own blue line, and Mike was standing at center ice there waiting for him, and he shot it right at his head. Boy, if he didn't move, and it was a slap shot. You know how Guy Lafleur could let it go, and it just missed his head. They were going to kill him, and now that you mention that, as I go along, I think about what he said. And Bruins said they're going to kill him in the next game and all that and everything because nobody ever shot at a guy's head. And he says, no, that won't happen. He says, I know Don Cherry. It made me feel good.
Yeah, you didn't go after him. It was Terry and Riseborough, and
I think to my detriment, as they say, I think I should have went after the Stars more. I really do. I should have.
you got to win with honor. That's not honorable. Like my thing is like Mike Bossy, like he never did anything.
No.
He never.
You asked me about Matthews.
Matthews,
eh? Okay. He's got to learn. Just skate away. I mean, and don't stand there laughing and while the other guys some little guy is fighting your battles for you.
Giordano's half his age. He's got to jump in there.
41 years old. I think he's the oldest guy in the league. He's got to jump in and start the fight. He's
right.
40.
So the whole thing is what you're saying is Matthews shouldn't fight, but don't start anything.
Don't start anything and just leave it alone. And and when the fight is going on, don't stand there and laugh.
No, grab somebody and pretend.
Somebody let on you're trying to fight or something like that. Grab some. Well, better not say it. But grab some.
Well, he's a big guy, Matthews.
Oh, boy, is he ever big.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing is people like when listening to the news, they were saying, oh, you want him to fight. No, you don't want him to fight, but he can't slash a guy like that. And then when everything's done, he went and he pushed him and cross-checked him again.
Well, you know what's going to happen then. Once you do that. Anyhow, but he'll never learn because he's from the desert, as he says. He's from the desert.
Well, and
I never could figure out. I still to this day I can't figure out how a guy can shoot the puck the way he shoots the puck and knows what to do with the puck, and he's from the desert.
And the funny thing is, sorry, Cindy. The funny thing is, he shoots it like nobody else. Like he shoots it off balance.
Well, McDavid.
Yeah, no, like McDavid really goes. But I'm not saying it's hard. McDavid shoots it just as hard, but.
I know what you mean.
Like he shoots it off balance, like he
on one leg.
On one leg, it's really weird the way he shoots the puck. Like Ovechkin shoots the puck a lot different than and McDavid is just a quick wrist shot.
Yeah,
but he's that's why I think he scores a lot of goals because the goalies.
Isn't it something to see that McDavid? I know we went from Matthews to McDavid, but holy smoke, that McDavid! He takes those choppy steps, and.
Okay, I got something for you about McDavid. Listen to this, Cindy. So McDavid's leading the NHL in goals and points. If he keeps on the rate, he's going to get like 90 goals or something like that.
He's the best player in the world.
Do you know that there's 50 players right now in the NHL that average more ice time than him?
You're kidding.
Yeah. Now, most of them are defensemen.
Well.
But still won't. So there are, you know what, here's the forwards that average more ice time than McDavid. Barkov in Florida averages more ice time. Marner, Toronto, averages more ice time. Kucherov and McKinnon.
You're kidding.
Yeah. And then there's the defenseman, though. But if you go by average, he's 50th in the league.
I don't know. He's got something, and he's going to get better as the season goes on.
And here's another one, looking at that. For forwards, Matthews is 12th in the league for ice time.
Oh, no, that really is something. I read that before, and I said, I can't believe that. Matthews is...
like he's a horse. He could play...
He doesn't try that sweep in anymore. You notice that? And I said, if I was a defenseman, I wouldn't let him sweep in like that. Put his arm down and, sweep around me. No way. And if we're going to start mentioning teams, and Bruins are 10-3 now. Boy, did you see that fight between... there was two, and there was Frederick and Schulman. I forget how you pronounce his name. Greer and Goodnow. And
that was Boston, New York.
Yeah, I was Boston, New York Rangers. Oh, and one of the guys got hit. One of the Bruins got hit. Holy smokes.
Now, was that a dirty hit?
No. And there's a hit, and there's not a hit. There's a hit where you hit a guy, but this was a beauty, right? It's open ice, and the guy went flying. A hit is a hit, right? No. Anyhow, they had two beauty fights, and I'll tell you, when you watch the Boston Bruins, it is really something. They put on a pretty good show.
Yeah, that was a tough game last night. That was a good game. I mean, the Leafs played well, but I thought for sure the Bruins were going to tie it up late there.
Vegas is 10-2. That's Cassidy, Bruce Cassidy.
So the old Bruin coach went to Vegas, and he's winning.
Yeah.
I think that, you know what, to me, though, that's a bit of a surprise, because Vegas was...
I'm just mentioning the things that I thought was interesting last week. Carolina beat Tampa, and they had 56 shots. 56 shots. I'm just happening to mention it. And in 3 games last week, they had 24 penalties. That's a lot of penalties.
I remember when you were coaching Boston that the referees kind of had a little bit of a feel for the game.
Yeah, they did.
You know, anything. So last night, Edmonton's playing Dallas. Dallas is ahead by 3. Edmonton scores to make it within 2. It's in about halfway through the third period. Right off the face-off, Kane just kind of takes a guy hard into the boards and gives him a cross-check and penalty. Jamie Benn scores, and it's out of reach again.
Yeah, it's over.
And look, you go, really? Like, that was a penalty. Like, you needed to call that penalty now. Was it near the play? It didn't infect the game at all. Well, it did. We call it things. I think it's going to start catching up with them calling these phantom calls. The Edmonton fans just went insane.
They deserve to go insane because it was an insane penalty. I remember when we get up 6-2 or 7-3 or something like that. And John McCauley, the greatest referee of all time as far as I'm concerned, and he'd get called 4 penalties on us in a row because he didn't want any trouble. And I'd say, is that enough? And he'd say, yeah. And they'd actually nod. He just as he's skating by. By the way, do you notice how the referees go over and talk to the coaches now?
Oh, nowadays it's just like we talked about this before. I don't ever remember a referee coming up and talking to you, except when the guy was
Dave Newell.
Dave Newell did it to you in Toronto.
He come up to me and well, shall I tell that story?
Yeah, we told that story, but it's a pretty funny story.
I come over and
you're in Toronto, Hockey Night in Canada. There's a timeout, and you're yelling at Newell for something.
I'm yelling at him, and he's going to drop the puck, and he says, "Timeout!" A referee called a timeout, and he comes over and he's going to give me heck. I said, "Get over!" And so I get down on the front of right on the boards, back of the bench. So I'm right on the boards waiting for him. And he come over and he poked me in the chest and he said, "That's the sharpest suit you've been wearing this year, as far as I'm concerned." And the guys on TV saying, "Look at him giving him Cherry heck. He's really giving him heck and telling him to keep
severely
quiet."
reprimanding Don Cherry.
I remember Mom and I watching the game because they put it back to Boston. And I said, "Man," I says, Dad's not even saying anything back.
I was stunned.
You were stupefied.
And the players were killing themselves laughing on either side. And I was absolutely stunned. Dave Newell.
Then remember when he skated away, right?
And he stopped and he skated away and he stopped and he says, "Don't you forget it. That is the greatest." And I'm still standing there with my mouth open.
Yeah, the fans were going nuts. But they just talked. They talked way too much.
Oh, to go over and talk to them and explain the penalty.
Yeah, they're justifying their stupid
calls.
calls.
I'm glad they didn't do that to me. All right, let's talk about spread.
Okay. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Spreads.ca. They're a Canadian-owned online casino and sportsbook.
Big deal, Canadian-owned.
That's it. And if you sign up now and use the promo GRAPES, they'll match your deposit up to $250. They'll give you 10 spins on the big wheel for some money, and your first sports bet, they'll spot you $25. And I hate to say it, Dad, I bet on the Leafs last night over the Boston Bruins.
You did?
Yes.
Well, you won.
I won.
I guess that's the main thing. Just win, that's all.
Yeah. So, Dad, coming up is November 11th, and you and
I should remember that.
Yeah, so that was the whole Poppygate incident. Started, 4 years ago, was it?
Yeah, it's 2019, so.
Is that right, eh? I didn't know that.
Time flies, eh, Dad?
Yeah, surprise. When is it?
2019. That's 3 years ago.
Famous fleeting, as they say. But all I want to say is what I was trying to say was everybody should be wearing a poppy.
Yeah, I like you and I are having a little bit different, Cindy. Like I'm in Mississauga in the one area, and I have to say I was out on Friday. I was at a Tim Hortons, then I was at a McDonald's, I was at a Shoppers Drug Mart, I was in a mall. I saw one guy with a poppy. I saw one guy. Now you said you've seen.
I don't know. I'm in Port Credit, and I see a lot of poppies, and I always make an observation.
They're older people.
They're older people,
yeah,
and I don't know what it is about down there, but I see them a lot.
Well, I think in the small cities, they probably wear the poppies more than they do in the big cities.
Yeah. Well, I had something that happened to me this past week. I'm working on a television show, and we were up in the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum in Hamilton.
Yeah,
if you're in the Toronto area and you haven't gone to see this museum, you have to go. It's unbelievable. They have one of only 2 Lancasters that still fly, and they just got a Spitfire. So we were lucky enough to go up on a Douglas C-47, and they were the planes that dropped the paratroopers behind enemy lines during D-Day. And the plane that we went up in actually saw action.
Wounded too. You had.
Yeah, we saw action on D-Day and flew the paratroopers behind enemy lines in France, flew back, then hooked up a glider, then flew a glider over, dropped it off. And, talking to the pilot at the time, the pilot who was flying us, and he just said, they were to fly low and slow. He says they were just asking to be shot down.
Yeah.
And the skin of the plane, Cindy, it was so thin I could have taken my cross pen and punched a hole in it. And I said to the guy, like, you go up to the cockpit and you really can't see out of the cockpit. Like, it's a really small thing, and there's no radar or anything, right? Like, this is like. And I said, well, how do you know you didn't have a Messerschmitt behind you? He goes, they'd be the bullet holes ripping through the fuselage would tell you if there was there. And all these guys were 22 years old, and just sitting on that plane before takeoff, you wonder just what those guys were thinking of. Like, they were going,
and they knew they were, and a lot of them paratroopers. Boy, there's not too many survive. If you're in a
well,
deep
those
battle.
planes went down. There was no way they were getting out.
You had a stat too about the pilots, though.
The oldest, we were talking, and the guy said on that day, the oldest guy in the plane was 23 years old. He was the pilot.
And
he was 23, and there was two pilots. And
somehow I would think the pilots would have been older.
No, they're all like super young.
That's all I was talking about, Tim.
And I just thought, like, those guys, they took off. They probably didn't know if they were ever coming home again.
Yeah, and the odds were they weren't, because they were told before the action by Eisenhower, a lot of you people aren't coming back.
Yeah,
and
you got to wear a pop. Like, to me especially, like, I was really getting mad looking at the lack of people wearing poppies.
They couldn't care less.
And you look and sitting on that plane thinking what those guys had to go through. I just mentally what it would have been like. And
well, everybody, as far as I'm concerned, everybody should be wearing a poppy.